Nova Scotia News.
Tonight, charged. 2 young people face second-degree murder charges following a death at the Halifax shopping mall. Overcrowded. More designated tent encampments will open to make space for more homeless in Halifax. And full circle, a Halifax brewery sends its leftover grain to a farm to grow its burger bash beef.
Today may have been cool. It was quite windy, but that sunshine was lovely. And that sunny weather will be sticking around into the weekend. I'll have your full forecast just ahead.
Good evening. There is a breakthrough in the homicide of a 16-year-old Halifax youth. Today, police announced that they have charged 2 14-year-olds with second-degree murder. Blair Rhodes reports.
The charges come just 4 days after the incident in this parking garage attached to the Halifax shopping centre. 16-year-old Ahmed Al-Marak was stabbed early Monday evening. He was rushed to hospital where he later died. Al-Marak was laid to rest yesterday at a Halifax area mosque. He and his family moved to Canada from Syria 8 years ago. The mourner said he was only just settling into life here in Canada. Police tracked down 2 16-year-olds on a Halifax transit bus in the hours after the incident and arrested them, but they were released without charges. RCMP maintained a presence near 3 schools in the Sackville area yesterday because of reports of a potential threat, but they say that threat was not still there today. The 2 14-year-olds were arrested earlier today.
Our investigators are not looking for additional suspects at this time. They say we have charged 2 individuals, and like I say, we're bringing them before the courts.
Police say their investigation is continuing, but they say there is no further threat to the public at this time.
But there's no information to suggest at this point that it was a hate-motivated crime.
The 2 14-year-olds will make their first appearance in youth court tomorrow. Blair Rhodes, CBC News, Halifax.
Halifax is planning to open more designated homeless encampments, with the number of people sleeping rough in the area continuing to rise. As Selena Alders reports, the current 4 tent encampments are over capacity and are becoming more crowded.
According to a new staff report from the municipality, there are currently 60 to 70 people sleeping rough in Halifax, and more than 1,000 are homeless. Some of them live here at this designated tent encampment on University Avenue. This thin strip of land once only had a few tents, but when the city evicted those living at Victoria Park around the corner, people came here, and it's been growing ever since. City staff say as the seasons change, more tents are popping up, including about 15 to 20 in other non-designated areas like Point Pleasant Park and the Halifax Common. To address this, the city plans on creating more of these designated sites. At this time, it's unclear how many or where they'll be located.
First, we should just make sure that everybody knows that encampments are not a solution to the homelessness crisis in any way. Encampments are bad for the people who are forced to live in them, and they're not good for the community around them.
But we do know that they will not be at any of the sites that were de-designated over the winter, including Grand Parade and Victoria Park. The encampments will also not be permitted within 50 meters of schools, daycares, playgrounds, or other recreation facilities. The staff report describes encampments as a temporary necessity, not a solution. This announcement comes as the province's solutions to the homeless crisis aren't coming fast enough for many. A tiny home community coming to Lower Sackville will not be ready until the fall. The 100 pallet shelters meant for Halifax, not until next winter.
The timing for when those things will be ready and when we've got people looking for the space isn't quite lined up. So that's the reason we need temporary, additional temporary locations, because we've got to give people a place to go and provide some support until those new options are available and ready for occupancy.
The province opened 2 new shelters in recent months, but the one at the Halifax Forum is set to close in August, so the municipality is looking for a replacement. The city says designated encampments will have porta potties and water, but no power for now. Staff will look at how many sites are needed at a council meeting next month. Selena Alders, CBC News, Halifax.
Nova Scotia Health is hosting its first provincial career fair tomorrow. It will be offering in-person opportunities for job seekers in 11 communities. Lauren Murphy of Nova Scotia Health says the time is right for a job fair like this.
For me, the biggest thing was educating Nova Scotians on the number of positions
that we have available at Nova Scotia Health. So last year we attended 155 external career fairs. So you can imagine we are one booth in a sea of many booths, one employer in a sea of many employers. But really, we have enough to do our own. So here we are.
I'll talk to Lauren Murphy of Nova Scotia Health about what job seekers can expect at this first-of-its-kind job fair. That's our Newsmaker interview just after 6:30. Meanwhile, the provincial government says it has recruited more than a dozen paramedics from Australia who will begin working in the province this summer. 13 paramedics will be coming in July, and more will come early next year. An in-person recruiting drive in Australia earlier this year also resulted in some interest from continuing care assistants and pharmacists. The government says Australia has been identified as a good fit for recruitment in a number of health professions that have recently added, quote, expedited licensing options to get them working quickly in Nova Scotia. The Supreme Court of Canada has agreed to hear an appeal of a case from a Nova Scotia woman that deals with legislation passed during the pandemic. The Canadian Civil Liberties Association and Kimberly Taylor are taking the province of Newfoundland and Labrador and the Chief Medical Officer of Health to court over the travel restrictions they placed on non-residents. In May of 2020, Taylor was denied a travel exemption to attend her mother's funeral in Newfoundland. A provincial court ruled the ban violated the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, but said a section of the charter allows for exemptions, and COVID was a valid exemption. The Court of Appeal here refused to hear an appeal last year. That sent the case to the Supreme Court of Canada, who said today it will hear the case. The public hearing examining fire safety at a Halifax daycare continued today. Happy Tots in Fairview is appealing an order to have to install fire sprinklers, arguing it already has a fire safety plan and a sprinkler system would cost more than $100,000. The daycare says that would force them to close the infant room, leaving 11 families with no childcare. A fire inspector who made the report told the inquiry about his reservations with the daycare's evacuation plan. He says that involves placing those 11 children in a crib and bringing them out.
Cribs aren't, in my opinion, necessarily rated or intended for use for more than one infant. I don't know what the average weight of an infant is exactly. I would wager somewhere north of 15 pounds. So if you take 11 of them and put them in a crib, that's 150, 160 pounds in one crib for staff to be able to maneuver out through the building, over the door thresholds, down the stairs and away from the building. To my way of thinking, there's some issues with that on a good day, let alone in a fire situation.
The three-member panel asked to visit the daycare to get a close look for themselves at the center. A decision is expected at a later date. Burger Bash was a huge success for one business in Cole Harbour. North Brewing sold 3,000 of their specialty Bourbon Legend burgers. The beef used comes from an East Preston hobby farm that in turn uses leftover grain product from the brewery to feed its animals. Paul Palmer takes us through the process from brewery to farm to plate.
It's a busy day at North Brewing. It's canning day as thousands of cans are filled with one of their craft beer products. To make beer, they use barley, and when the brewing is done, there is leftover grain that they can no longer use. But North Brewing saves that grain for a local hobby farmer located nearby in East Preston.
He seemed really, really keen and excited to get our grain to feed his animals. So, starting from that day when he stopped by and we agreed that he could just take a little bit, the relationship just kind of developed naturally from there.
Justin Colley and his dad Wilbur have about 20 cattle on their hobby farm.
It's close to pick up, and it offsets the feed costs. It's their waste and their gold.
They use hay to feed their cattle, but the leftover grain from the brewery is a hit with the animals.
They love it. They seem to love it. We get different flavors from different beers they brew.
The relationship between the Collies and North Brewing reached another level last week. One of the animals from the hobby farm that was partly fed by the grain was made into hamburger at this Dartmouth meat shop. The Hamburg was then sent to North Brewing, where they used it for their Bourbon Legend Burger as part of Burger Week.
Justin was mentioning he had cows, and I knew Burger Week was coming up, and I was kind of like, hey, let's see if we can make this happen, and it worked out. It worked out really well.
Burger Bash was an overwhelming success at the brewery. Over 3,000 bourbon burgers were sold, with $1 from each sale going to support Feed Nova Scotia. The specialty burger may become a fixture on their menu.
We've had certainly lots of calls for this being on the menu all the time. So we are discussing, what that might look like and if we'll do it, but we'll definitely bring it back at some point.
Paul Pometer, CBC News, Cole Harbour.
And Jay Scotland back with us again tonight. Pretty nice day here in Halifax, at least, although a little cool, Jay.
Yeah, and that wind definitely had some bite to it. Very brisk conditions in terms of, we saw those winds gusting 50 kilometers per hour or higher, so that did result in quite a biting wind chill this morning. I know out at Stanfield Airport, the wind chill was around -9 early this morning, as a lot of kids were getting off to school, folks were getting off to work, so there was a bit of a bite in the air, and temperatures recovered a smidge. We stayed below that seasonal average certainly today. See, just looking at this map here of some daytime highs from across the province, anywhere from 4 to over 8 degrees. Warmer in a few inland areas with that sunshine, though, as well. Quiet conditions as we take a look at the satellite and the radar picture. Not much to show you in terms of what's happening now. We have a lack of cloud cover, and not much to show you into the future either. We will watch just a few passing clouds and maybe some onshore flurries as we look to just the northern tip of Cape Breton. But for the most part, we'll be looking at a clearing sky across the province overnight tonight. As that wind eases, those clouds should start to dissipate that are, and it's not overcast by any stretch, but some cloud cover at times over parts of Cape Breton. As we start the day tomorrow, lots of sunshine, but we will watch for maybe some clouds to develop, certainly as we get into the early to mid-afternoon tomorrow. Partly cloudy sky will be possible. Slight chance as we look up into Sydney, for example, for maybe a sprinkle late in the afternoon. But for the most part, that sky is going to stay clear for much of the day, as that cloud cover that develops in the afternoon should dissipate into the evening. Here's a look at what you can expect across the HRM. Still chilly tonight, but warming up to closer to seasonal with that sunshine tomorrow afternoon, and breezy, but not nearly as windy as what we saw today.
Nice.
So a wind chill, yes, just not as bad as what we saw this morning.
The sun always helps too, doesn't it?
Oh,
okay, thanks so much, Jay. We'll chat a little later.
You got it.
The federal government is opening a personal use bait fishery for mackerel this spring, while extending the moratorium on commercial mackerel fishing in Atlantic Canada and Quebec. Fish caught under a bait license are intended for personal use and cannot be sold, traded, or bartered. The Department of Fisheries and Oceans says the bait fishery will help license holders supply their other fisheries, such as lobster, with bait without jeopardizing the ongoing rebuilding of the stock. Nova Scotia MP Mike Kellaway is Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Fisheries and Oceans.
So today's announcement, quite frankly, is really about striking the right balance between protecting the resource, equipping the harvesters with the bait they need, and obtaining recent data from the ground, which can only better inform next steps in the fishery that is so vital to our coastal communities.
The commercial mackerel fishery was closed in 2022 after steep declines blamed on overfishing. It has remained closed ever since. Mackerel arrive in different parts of the region at different times, first off southern Nova Scotia and later in Newfoundland and Labrador. Global negotiators are in Ottawa discussing how to deal with global plastic pollution. One of the key problems is trying to track where it comes from. Now, a new study from Halifax's Dalhousie University reveals which companies are responsible for much of the world's plastic waste, but it's an incomplete list. Anand Ram has a story.
These aren't scientists, but this field trip to pick up trash is more than making the shores scenic.
The younger grades will come and put it in my bucket, and then I'll write it down what it is so we can keep track of everything. You have a lot of stuff. Can you put that here?
That tracking is exactly the kind of observations that powered a new study on plastic pollution, involving tens of thousands of volunteers cataloging the brands they saw during cleanups. Researchers analyzed that, singling out these companies: Coca-Cola, Pepsi, Nestle, and Danone, powerful brands that experts say deflect responsibility.
They often point to recycling being the panacea or the solution to the problem, but as we know, with only 9% of all plastics ever made only ever being recycled, it leaves, the other 90 or 91% going to waste or worse into the environment.
And it builds up in the environment. This is a barricade in Guatemala just days ago, collecting a wall of trash. But experts say even striking images like this are out of sight, out of mind for developed nations.
It's also easy to think that when we're in Western countries with well-equipped waste collection facilities, it's hard to see the problem when you can't see the problem.
And as negotiators work in Ottawa on a binding global treaty for plastic pollution, some are taking that message directly to those in power.
I really want the developed country to stop export their plastic waste to developing country, especially Indonesia. I want them to take back their trash from our country.
Only Coca-Cola responded to CBC News but didn't address the study specifically, saying it's trying to make all its products recyclable by next year. But keep in mind that the study had to disregard more than 1 million plastic waste items because volunteers couldn't clearly identify a brand, meaning the true picture of where plastic pollution comes from is likely a lot more. Anand Ram, CBC News, Toronto.
Some sad news to pass along now. Legendary hockey broadcaster Bob Cole has died. He was 90 years old. Cole was the Hockey Night in Canada play-by-play voice for countless NHL games for 50 years. He called his last game a Toronto-Montreal matchup 5 years ago. Peter Cowan has this look back at Cole's remarkable career.
Bob Cole was there for all the big moments, the wins, the losses, bringing his excitement for hockey and his catchphrases, like during the 1991 Stanley Cup Final.
He was the storyteller of hockey for generations of people like me. You could tell what was happening on the ice by the urgency of his voice. You could kind of close your eyes and you knew what hockey was all about when you heard Bob speak.
Bob Cole got a start in Newfoundland calling regional games. In the 1960s, he was behind the mic for his first NHL game on CBC Radio. Then in the 1970s, he joined Hockey Night in Canada on television, where he stayed for 50 years. Ron McLean first met Cole when he started hosting Hockey Night in Canada in the 1980s.
And Bob Cole walked into the studio and he said, watched the whole game last night. Don't change a thing. And he just, he elevated me then when I was a kid, 26, and he elevated me this weekend when I'm 64. So how do you thank someone for that?
Cole was a proud Newfoundlander, and his home was proud of him, too. The media box in the Mary Brown Centre in St. John's bears his name. Glenn Stanford has headed a half-dozen professional hockey teams.
Bob Cole is synonymous in the hockey industry, and obviously from a provincial perspective, one of our own, a proud Newfoundland guys. So, a sad day for hockey and a sad day for the province, for sure.
For a man who spent decades on television, he didn't like to draw attention to himself. For him, it was all about the hockey.
And never mind me or whomever broadcasting, enjoy the game. And I'm trying to pass the message along to the viewers that I am enjoying the game. Done my job.
He kept calling games well into his 80s. His last NHL game was just 5 years ago. Bob Cole was 90 years old. Peter Cowan, CBC News, St. John's.
Coming up, Honda has announced a $15 billion investment to build 4 new plants in Ontario to build electric vehicles and their batteries. Hollywood producer Harvey Weinstein is getting a new trial. A court has overturned his 2020 convictions for criminal sexual assault and rape. And this is a look at Wolfe Island from today. Jay Scotland is back with your full weather forecast in just a couple of moments. We'll see you right after the break. Jay Scotland back with us now with the main weather forecast. And yeah, things looking pretty good in Nova Scotia for the next little while, aren't they?
Yeah, if Ryan could plan his days off around days like this,
He does. I think he does.
I would forever be grateful. He gets a nicer day off. I have a lighter load in terms of forecasting. That is nice to see. Not so nice to see those biting wind chills this morning, but that sunshine was lovely this afternoon. We're back to sunny conditions tomorrow. Again, chilly in the morning, but not as windy as we saw today. So the wind chill there, just not as biting as what we saw to start your Thursday is what we're going to see for your Friday morning. Temperature-wise, it was below seasonal across the province today, but we did really, if you were on the sunny side of the street, it did feel warmer. And despite the wind, it was really nice to see that sun and that blue sky across most of the province today. Quiet conditions, just some cloud cover as we look to parts of Cape Breton. Just with that very brisk wind from the west coming in off the Gulf and off the Strait, and that has been resulting in some low cloud. That should continue to dissipate, though, as the wind dies down tonight. We'll see a much quieter weather picture overnight in terms of the wind conditions into tomorrow morning, but that ridge of high pressure is still keeping that sky clear to start the day. Few clouds do develop as we get into the afternoon tomorrow, so I don't want to say overcast conditions, but you may see a few cloudy periods or passing clouds. We'll say a sunny start to the day for most areas, and then a mix of sun and cloud as we edge into the afternoon. And then those clouds do dissipate tomorrow evening as that ridge of high pressure sticks with us for the long haul, bringing us into what will be a very sunny Saturday forecast. Almost no cloud cover, if any at all, so uninterrupted sunshine for your Saturday. Temperatures will still be near to below seasonal, but we are looking at a lot of sunshine, which for a late April forecast in the Maritimes, no complaints from this meteorologist here. All right, let's take a look at what you can expect through the overnight hours tonight. Temperatures dipping down to around or below freezing by a few degrees, so you can expect another crisp start to the day for your Friday tomorrow. The wind will not be as gusty, though, so wind chill values not going to be as big of a problem. But temperature-wise, yeah, this is going to be another chilly night. Just a few clouds for Cape Breton. Otherwise, we're looking at a clear picture for mainland Nova Scotia, and it will be mostly clear for much of Cape Breton as that wind dies down. What little cloud cover you have should dissipate. It's wind-driven cloud cover, just with that cold west wind coming in off the water. As we look to your Friday, we are going to see some clouds developing in the afternoon. South Shore area up towards Kentville. This is where you're looking at a sunny sky through the day. But as we edge into much of mainland Nova Scotia, certainly northern, more eastern areas, this is where you'll see a few clouds developing in the afternoon, more of a mix of sun and cloud. And I was mentioning this earlier, as we look up into eastern parts of the province, up towards Sydney, for example, into Cape Breton, you do have that chance of a shower developing late afternoon, and temperatures will still be a little bit below where they should be. Certainly going to feel that way into the morning hours tomorrow, but 9 degrees, 10 degrees for inland areas. Not bad with a fairly sunny forecast. We're back to a sunny sky with no cloud cover for Saturday, or very little cloud cover, and then a mix of sun and cloud with that temperature up in the low to mid-teens for inland areas on Sunday. Taking a look at the long-range outlook, we see those temperatures back at or above seasonal for the long range for Monday, Tuesday, but we do get a chance of showers Wednesday and a better chance for some steady rain with cooler temperatures as we look to next Thursday. But like I said earlier, I was mentioning this on Tuesday, we like a mix of the sunny days and the rainy days to keep that grass green, keep that fire risk low, and just keep everything nice so we can really enjoy that sunnier, clear weather.
Even keel. That's the way we like it, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks so much, Jay. If you need a little inspiration, Joe Dunn has you covered. He's turning heads by doing flips, handstands, and rope climbing, all at 79 years of age. People try to keep up with him, but, well, he's leaps and bounds ahead of them. Have a look for yourself.
Anytime I'd ever watched the Olympics or anything like that, it was the one sport would hold my attention. And I said when I was in my 40s, I said, I'd love to give that a try sometime, thinking I'd never get the opportunity.
Every time I'm here, I'm inspired by Joe with what he does. He was definitely growing the sport. Everyone's always like, oh no, too old. And like, I can assure you, you are not. We have someone who is 79, turning 80, and he comes and he participates and he's getting better every time.
And I said to the coach, well, I'm not a parent, I'm a grandparent. He said, well, it's a pretty rugged class, but if you want to give it a try, you're welcome. 13, 14 years later, I'm still here. The young people that are here, they seem to accept me fine, you know, so I'm okay with that.
It's hard, and I can't do it as high as Joe. Joe rings the bell, and I get scared, and I go 3/4.
It's a 2-hour class. First half hour is a warm-up. The middle hour, you can do anything you want with the gear we have here. And the last half hour, we're back to conditioning again.
What do people say to you when they see you doing gymnastics?
Well, they're surprised, most of them. Well, they think, like you said, they think it's for younger folks, which it is if you're going to be a competitor, and that it is too. But you can still have fun with it. Okay. I'll do it as long as I can, as long as I feel healthy and great. Yeah. Give it a try. You'll enjoy it. There's a few growing pains until you get in condition for it, but once you do, it's great.
That is impressive. Well done, Joe. Up next, I'll talk with Lauren Murphy of Nova Scotia Health about a first-of-its-kind healthcare worker job fair that's happening across the province tomorrow. That is our Newsmaker interview. Do stay with us. You are watching CBC Nova Scotia News. Nova Scotia Health says it's hosting its first ever provincial career fair tomorrow. It will be offering in-person opportunities for job seekers in 11 communities. Lauren Murphy is with Nova Scotia Health. So, Ms. Murphy, why this career fair and why now?
That's a great question. So I think for me, the biggest thing was educating Nova Scotians on the number of positions that we have available at Nova Scotia Health. So last year we attended 155 external career fairs. So you can imagine we are one booth in a sea of many booths, one employer in a sea of many employers. But really, we have enough to do our own. So here we are. We have a full day from 10 until 7 p.m. on Friday tomorrow with 11 different locations. We have upwards to 200 booths across all of those sites, all representing jobs at Nova Scotia Health. So it's an opportunity for people to come and chat with people who are living those roles, ask them questions, build those relationships. We have a super easy QR code that you can scan and you enter to win a East Coast lifestyle gift box, but also connects you to job opportunities. So I think it's going to be really exciting.
Well, I saw the list of departments that you're looking for help in, and it's pretty wide ranging from facility management to physicians, really. What can you say about the range of needs?
Well, I think it's really, Nova Scotia Health is kind of like a small city. So if you think about every single type of job it takes to run a city, that's the same as us. We need nurses, we need doctors, we need folks in diagnostic imaging, pharmacy, respiratory therapy, lab. We need those people, but we're more than scrubs and stethoscopes. We need people who are administrative. We need everyone in the trades. We have amazing volunteer opportunities, tons of IT. We're also really leaning into student recruitment. So you can imagine, Nova Scotia Health is not the only employer who's finding it hard to fill positions these days. I think that's pretty standard across the board. So what we're really trying to focus on now is getting those grads, getting those high school students in the door so they can see a space for them here in healthcare. So we just posted a summer student role. We already have like hundreds of applications, which we're so excited about. So really, bringing in that youth look and getting them engaged and excited about roles that we have.
And is that really the focus, youth people or young people, or is it looking to pull people out of the woodwork of Nova Scotia who may be a little older, maybe have more experience?
We are looking for everyone. So we are inviting all Nova Scotians to come. And that's really another part of the reason why we wanted to host this provincially. We want everyone to be connected to the facility and their community. We wanted to showcase to folks that it's not just about Halifax. We have jobs for you all across the province. So yes, high school students, post-grad, everything, but also just general public.
You mentioned career fairs, that you've been at others over the past number of years. I know this is the first of its kind for Health Nova Scotia, or Nova Scotia Health right now. But overall, how effective do you feel career fairs are?
Oh, they're absolutely amazing. And again, it's an opportunity for people to talk to the people who are actually in the role. We live in a virtual world right now. I mean, I'm talking to you through my computer. Everyone has to apply online. But you kind of miss that interaction with the human where you're like, what is it like to work there? Tell me the truth. Tell me the goods. Asking questions about what is the compensation? What is the education pathway to get to this job? You get to have that connection point. And I've been to many, many, many career fairs in my time. And it makes me just so full of joy when I get to chat with people and I see that connection and then they apply and they get hired.
And so if anyone's watching this and they are interested, for more information, where should people look?
Absolutely. So just go to nshealth.ca/news and it's the first thing that comes up on the page.
All right. Can't miss it. Lauren Murphy, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Coming up, police and health authorities are investigating after an illegal abattoir was discovered in an Edmonton neighborhood. Japanese automaker Honda has announced a multi-billion-dollar electric vehicle investment in Ontario. It will build new manufacturing plants in the province, and at its center will be a complex north of Toronto. The CBC's Ithel Musa reports.
It's being touted as the largest auto investment in Canada's history.
This is absolutely historic.
Japanese automaker Honda is investing $15 billion to build 4 new electric vehicle manufacturing plants in Ontario. The deal includes establishing Honda's first electric vehicle assembly plant, as well as a new standalone EV battery plant at Honda's facility in Alliston, Ontario.
These investments will create well over 1,000 well-paying manufacturing jobs.
The federal government and province are each contributing about $2.5 billion in investment tax credits and through various direct and indirect incentives.
Canada is planning for zero emissions by 2035. So a lot of these movements need to be done. The demand will catch up eventually, but in the meantime, you have to make the investment.
This employment director in Alliston says Honda's investment will also have a positive, lasting impact on the wider community.
It's the spin-off jobs. So there's a lot of parts manufacturers that will now support that facility. But it's the small little mom and pop shops around those facilities too that benefit from more customers.
The new Honda facility will be the third EV battery plant in the province, after Volkswagen in St. Thomas and Stellantis in Windsor. The federal government and automakers say once the assembly plant is fully operational in 2028, it will produce up to 240,000 vehicles per year. Idil Musa, CBC News, Toronto.
New York's highest court has overturned Harvey Weinstein's 2020 rape conviction and ordered a new trial. The Court of Appeals ruled today that the judge at the disgraced movie mogul's landmark Me Too trial prejudiced him with improper rulings. That included letting women testify about allegations that weren't part of the case. The 72-year-old Weinstein is serving a 23-year sentence in New York. He'll remain imprisoned because of a 2022 conviction in a Los Angeles rape case that resulted in a 16-year prison term. Weinstein's lawyer called the reversal a tremendous victory, while a dissenting judge called it part of a disturbing trend of reversals in cases involving sexual violence. Donald Trump's hush money trial continues today in New York. Meantime, in Washington, the U.S. Supreme Court is hearing arguments about Trump's immunity case, stemming from charges over Trump's efforts to reverse the 2020 election results. It's weighing whether the former U.S. president can be criminally prosecuted for actions he took while in office. Caroline Malone has the latest developments.
The Supreme Court justices heard arguments from both sides of the case on Thursday, both from the prosecution side that want to move forward with an election interference case against former President Donald Trump, but can't do so until the question of immunity is answered. Now, Trump's lawyers, of course, have argued that he should be immune. That's why this case has come all the way up to the Supreme Court. They say in all the events leading up to January 6th, to the Capitol attack, all the conversations he had, he was acting in an official capacity as president in the White House at the time, and therefore that he shouldn't be tried. But this is an incredibly important case, so the Supreme Court justices were debating back and forward over a number of details, in particular because it doesn't just influence Donald Trump. This has an impact on future presidents as well.
If the president decides that his rival is a corrupt person and he orders the military or orders someone to assassinate him, is that within his official acts that for which he can get immunity?
It would depend on the hypothetical. There's also a scenario in which the Supreme Court decides that it's so complicated they actually have to send the case back to the lower courts to debate some of the finer details of this argument. At the moment, they're not likely to give a full opinion until at least the end of June, early July, before they recess for the summer. That means that if any other trials do go ahead, that wouldn't likely happen until midsummer or later. And by that time, we're getting into the later stages of the campaigning ahead of the presidential election here in the United States, which of course is highly likely to be between the same two candidates, current President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump. Caroline Malone in Washington for CBC News.
Haiti's Prime Minister Ariel Henry officially resigned today, clearing the way for a new transitional government in the Caribbean nation. The country has been overrun by chaos and deadly gang violence for months. A 9-member council has been sworn in. It will help set the agenda for a new cabinet and prepare the country for fresh elections in future. Meantime, remaining cabinet ministers tapped Finance Minister Michel Patrick Boisvert to serve as interim prime minister. Boisvert will work with the council to address the gang-fueled crisis. More than 2,500 people have been killed or injured since January, and thousands are displaced. A new UN report says about 1.5 million people in Haiti are a step away from famine. A sweeping new report is shedding light on a quiet crisis unfolding in many Canadian hospitals: the growing cost and longer treatment time for those dealing with homelessness. Some facilities are looking at new ways to help these patients navigate the healthcare system better. Lauren Pelly explains.
Mickey Ball is a regular face at this Toronto hospital.
I've been to the hospital about 60 times in the last 2 years.
All while she was living in a park downtown. She says being homeless took a toll on her health, from breathing issues to a mild heart attack.
I've been here for a lot of reasons, you know. My back, my legs swelled up really bad, and I was thinking that I had a blood clot.
Since 2018, hospitals across Canada have been required to track when patients are homeless.
A new report shows there were nearly 30,000 hospitalizations among homeless individuals between 2022 and 2023. The vast majority came through busy emergency departments.
The top 3 reasons were substance use disorders, serious mental health conditions, and cellulitis, a bacterial skin infection. Hospital stays among homeless Canadians were also nearly twice as long and cost more than double the national average.
They may have very serious conditions. They are also in hospital for a longer period of time, and because there may be challenges to discharge that patient to maybe a more appropriate care setting.
The outreach team here works with patients like Ball to help them find a place to live.
This is my home sweet home for my husband.
But the team says without enough shelter spaces or affordable housing options in Canada, those success stories don't happen often.
Up until today, it's been months and months since we've actually secured a shelter for somebody.
When there is no shelter space, they come to us.
This physician says housing investments could also benefit Canada's strained healthcare system.
I think we really need to understand homelessness as a healthcare issue, that just as much as we need food and water, we need places to be safe and warm.
Otherwise, thousands of Canadians will remain out in the cold with all the health problems that come with it. Lauren Pelly, CBC News, Toronto.
Police and health authorities in Alberta are warning consumers about a black meat market, a black market in red meat. It's putting unsafe, uninspected products into the local food supply. As Terry Reith explains, eating them can potentially put your health at risk.
With the rising cost of meat, consumers, restaurants, and commercial kitchens are looking to cut corners in whatever way they can. And one way is to bypass the inspection system. According to police, this can be done by stealing animals off farmers' fields, buying them cheap at auction, or slaughtering animals that should never be put into the commercial food chain. It can happen in so-called ghost abattoirs like this one, discovered in a residential garage in North Edmonton. It was found last year after several goats escaped slaughter and bolted into an alley. John Boss spotted them and snapped these pictures.
I've never seen anything like that in my life. Like, I worked on a pig farm and never looked like that. So, yeah, it was pretty disturbing what I seen. So that's why I took the pictures.
The RCMP in Alberta have confirmed that they're investigating the illegal slaughter of sheep and goats in southern Alberta. Earlier this week, several Calgary food establishments were shut down for the sale of uninspected meat. Alberta Health Services has issued a recall for 8 establishments in Calgary, including a wholesale distribution center and a caterer. As for that back alley abattoir in Edmonton, Edmonton police say they have not pressed charges. Another way illicit meat is being marketed is through online ads like this one. This Facebook page was pulled down after we inquired about the sources of the meat they were selling. Dozens of other online sellers remain.
It scares me because they don't know where that meat's coming from. They don't know that care has been taken in how the animal is killed, and that, that's one of the other issues for me, is the animal welfare side of it.
4 million Canadians are sickened by viruses, bacteria, and parasites every year, according to the Canadian Food Inspection Agency. About 238 people die, and in 60% of those cases, the cause of the food poisoning is never found. Terry Reith, CBC News, Edmonton.
A distressing story to share from Australia. Marine experts are trying to understand why about 140 pilot whales beached southwest of Perth At least 26 of the stranded animals have since died, but local residents are trying to help the remaining whales back into the ocean. Here's a look at the latest rescue efforts.
We removed the dead whales from the water, so that's what you can see. We tried to get them up out of the water line to stop encouraging the other whales that were in the water to re-strand or to strand back again. So we've got vessels out on the water, and we've also got spotter plane up in the air that's doing searches over every couple of hours just to see where they are. And so far so good. They haven't made it back to shore, but we will keep monitoring them.
Sometimes it might be a member of the pod is ill and the others follow. Sometimes it might be some kind of noise disturbance. Disease can be a factor, so it's very varied. We're taking a number of samples, particularly the priority is to exclude infectious diseases.
Oh, every whale stranding is different, and there's different circumstances and different situations, so it's hard to say, but we'll try and take as many samples as we can to see if there's anything happening in the population.
Canada's main stock index eked out a gain today thanks to energy and base metals. Here's a look at where the markets closed.
For news you can trust, we have the latest on what's happening in your community and a weather forecast you can rely on no matter where you are in Atlantic Canada. I'm Amy Smith.
And I'm Ryan Snoddon.
Join us for Atlantic Tonight,
right after the National.
Jay Scotland is back with us now to wrap things up weather-wise. And Jay, another beautiful day, as we were saying here in Nova Scotia, but things are getting off to a cool start these mornings, aren't they?
Yeah, and we're in that awkward time of year where I know in my household, not only have we put away the winter jackets, but we actually we put that, you know, the shrink wrap where you have the vacuum seal bags.
You're serious?
So opening those up is a bit of a chore. So my apologies to anybody who's maybe packed away the winter gear. You may need the thicker jacket or at least a good hoodie underneath the spring jacket to start the day tomorrow. But layers is key because we'll be starting out around or just below freezing most areas for 7 a.m. with that sunny start to the day. We do see a few clouds developing into the afternoon, but the temperature does improve anywhere from 8 to 10 degrees for the HRM and most of mainland Nova Scotia. If you're not near the water, we'll be up around or close to double digits tomorrow. So dressing in layers is key. Thicker layers in the morning, and of course you can maybe shed a layer or two in the afternoon. Certainly that wind will be the big story tomorrow. It was very gusty. Led to a biting wind chill this morning. Still going to see a wind chill tomorrow morning with 10 to 15 from the northwest. Gusting over 20 possible, sustained between 10 and 20 for the afternoon. That's breezy, not as gusty as what we saw today. So that wind chill, not as big of an issue for your Friday morning. Tom.
All right, looking forward to it for sure. Okay, thanks so much, Jay. And finally tonight, engineers at Columbia University have built a robot that can mimic human facial expressions. Researchers say the creation of the robot named Emo represents a major advance in communication between humans and robots.
As robots become more advanced and complicated, like those powered by AI models, there's a growing need to make these interactions more intuitive.
Emo can anticipate human facial expressions and mimic them, even predicting a forthcoming smile milliseconds before it happens. Robots have made strides in verbal communication in recent years, but they have lagged behind when it comes to facial cues. The engineers plan to integrate verbal communication into Emo to allow the robot to take part in complex and natural conversations. That is it for us tonight. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time.